do it there, jimbakkershow.com, and get this deal of the day, and you're getting the book, brand new, hot off the press. Oh, this book is amazing.
It is.
And it just overwhelms me. And you get the video, which will give you so much.
I really want people to know that what Timebomb is, yes, it does detail some of the nefarious parts of what's happening with our food in the country, but it is hopeful, and it's not a diet book.
No.
So in other words, it's not if you eat your fat levels at this point, and then you take your proteins, and then here's what you're going to do with carbs, and then here's a meal planner for 30 days. No. It's not that. It blows the lid off of what is happening through big corporations and the commercial gaming, the label gaming in this country, so that you can quickly and easily identify how to eat carefully and more cleanly. But it also deals with this whole idea that once you clean up the food stream, it has all this dominoing benefit of putting into remission things that are we've been indoctrinated to accept as hereditary or chronic, or we don't know what causes these things. Some people just deal with inflammation. Here's hydroxyzine. The point is, as you rebuild the gut, since that is where 80% of your immune system sits, we're seeing people every day now put things like Crohn's into remission.
Right.
Things like lupus, fibromyalgia, chronic pain. It is very much a message of hope.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw that out there. If you're struggling, if you're watching this program and you're struggling with things, you feel that you've exhausted everything. I've tried everything. I've been on X number of medications. I've been on this diet and that one. If you're still eating, if you're still taking part of the genocide of processed foods happening in this country, you're still unknowingly wrecking your immune system. And while it's weak, it's just sitting back allowing for all of these other issues, inflammation, autoimmune disease, and there are no pharmaceutical interventions to put that stuff into remission. There's only pharmaceutical interventions to help mask the symptoms of what we now know is a syndrome called leaky gut syndrome.
Right.
Yes.
I had to come to completely understand what that was doing to wreck my immune system before the painful bladder syndrome was in remission. Before I had all kinds of digestive issues. They would label it irritable bowel syndrome. You have an inflamed bowel. I remember being 16 years old. He doesn't remember this, and I won't go into the gruesome details. But I had a pretty scary episode in the restroom at about 16 where I had passed some blood. Oh. And you may not remember this. But I freaked out and ran in and got my father, who normally it was my mom. He runs in, he plays it cool because he doesn't want to alarm me, but he takes me to the doctor. And the doctor says, well, you might have had hemorrhoids. But the first step in my digestive tract, when we started seeing episodes like that, they told me that I had a nervous bowel, that it can be hereditary. These are just things that happen. And probably a lot of the people watching this program are thinking, gosh, this sounds an awful lot like stuff I've seen in my own families or maybe with myself. These can be the very first symptoms that you've compromised your gut and you've developed what is called leaky gut syndrome. Now, I'm not here to bash at all on Western medicine. I want to make that very clear. We have some dear friends that are a part of traditional, modern Western medicine. That is not my objective here. But when it comes to putting things like autoimmune disease into remission, I'm just telling you that from personal experience, in my path, it was when I got more aligned with the thinking and the principles that, frankly, are more biblical.
Yes.
That have to do with using the herbs of the land,
there you go,
treating your body as the temple.
Right.
Amen. Amen.
For years, I was told maybe take fiber.
Right.
My issues would go on and on and on and on and on. And not one time, even as I interned as a surrogate youth pastor at churches, and I would say, we need to take care of the temple, and I'm thinking things that are obvious. Don't do drugs, don't smoke, or whatever your worldview about some of the stuff we eat. But I'm thinking the obvious stuff. Okay, McDonald's maybe, but I'll still eat it. And I did. I just ate whatever I saw that I wanted. Nobody ever told me, Joe, your immune system's compromised. You're walking around with a time bomb in your system that's not sustainable. It's going to go off. And I kept eating whatever. I would binge eat Fruit Loops at 1 in the morning if I felt like it. Just the gluttony of that. Just the the kind of self-absorption of that, the total lack of taking serious my temple, and really, really reading into the Bible. What does that really mean? You know, Dr. Ralph, I'd love to hear you weigh in on this because I know that you know infinitely more than I do about this, but new studies show now that neuroscientists have discovered that after 3 days of fasting, your metabolism begins to reset and restructure the immune system. Cell by cell begins to rebuild and reboot the immune system.
Okay, so here's what you have written in the book, just a little bit here, but this really caught my attention. First of all, you gave scripture. You got to love scripture to back everything up. God expects us to fast. This is what you wrote, Joe. Therefore, also now, saith the Lord, turn ye even to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and with mourning. That's Joel 2:12. Look it up for yourself. Here we go, another scripture, Matthew 6:16. Moreover, when ye fast, be not as a hypocrite of a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear unto men to fast. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. Then you went on to say this, and here's what really, I mean, the scripture catches your attention, but then when you said this, it really got me. As you may already have noted, the second passage listed above says, when you fast, not if you fast.
So we are just barely beginning to scrape the surface in terms of where science is like. We're just catching up, and it's been in the Bible all the while.
Right.
There's something about when you fast at a molecular level, it resets the immune system. It brings back cognitive reasoning. So here, have you ever heard somebody say, I just had to fast for a couple of days and then God gave me my answer?
Yes,
Right.
all the time.
Right.
Something happens
Yes.
in the frontal lobes of your brain where you're able to receive these downloads from heaven at a place
Right.
where if you're just constantly binge eating and going through your daily work and your routine, it's very possible that God knew exactly what he was doing when he called us to fast.
You
When we
think.
call upon, yes,
Right.
I'm using a little bit of condescension there, but
But that's so true. So Dr. Ralph, that, talking about fasting.
Yeah,
just-
actually, it's kind of interesting, but this whole concept of fasting, what they found out is that if you fast and you want to do it as a habit or as a routine, then the optimal level of the amount of fasting that you do to the benefit that you receive is 2 days a week. And they're not to be 2 consecutive days. The thing about fasting that's interesting is if you had a home and you were in the dead of winter and your power went out, but you had to maintain yourself, you needed to stay alive through the cold winter. What do? Well, if you have a fireplace and you don't have any firewood, you start cannibalizing the home, taking molding off and baseboards off to throw it into the fireplace to burn to keep the house going and to keep yourself alive. The body's the same way. When you go into a fasting state, your body actually looks for things that it can burn. Usually those things are toxic. These are things that aren't considered necessary, like ornamentation of crown molding, for instance. Once you burn that, one of the reasons you get clarity of thought is 20% of your body's blood supply is in the brain. If you have a toxic liver and it's not filtering properly, you'll end up with toxic blood and toxic lymph. That gets to the brain and you see diminishing brain function.
Wow.
You can't operate, you want to think clean, you have to live clean. If you live dirty, you tend to think dirty. And this is just a principle. And what we're talking about here really is principles, godly principles that are in the Bible. And this is one of the things that we love about you guys. You're always promoting principles. You're trying to get people to understand a better way of living, and then you're trying to put tools in their hands so they could actually make that happen. It's for freedom that Christ
amazing.
came.
Right.
And it's
Joe mentioned a few seconds ago, Dr. Ralph, about leaky gut syndrome. And I know you talk about that in your practice. Tell us, what does that mean?
What we're looking at is this. You have to understand that inside the gut tube, this is an absorptive surface, and it's known as a selective membrane. It will allow foodstuffs in when it's healthy, and it will keep bad stuffs from being absorbed into the bloodstream or into the lymph. However, when we eat chronically improper foods, what ends up happening is we develop chronic inflammation. Now, at the base of every disease process, there's an inflammatory component. What's wrong with inflammation? Well, inflammation is a stress to the body chemistry, and you will waste nutrition that would normally go to healing you. It'll now go to trying to calm down or cool off the inflammatory process in the body. So it's kind of like you didn't get anything out of your meal because it's shunted somewhere else, something you didn't expect. Well, you have these cells inside the lining of your gut tube, and these cells have a little bit of a gap to them, in much the same way that a spark plug in your car, if you have too much gap, that's a problem. You have too little gap, that's also a problem, right? So there's a specified gap you're supposed to have. If this inflammation continues, you find that these gaps become loose and these junctions open up. And then what happens then is foodstuffs, because of your improper digestion, that are now too large, get absorbed into the bloodstream. And once that happens, that's called autotoxicity. Your meal that's supposed to be giving you nutrition and helping you become healthy now contributes to you becoming toxic because your inability of processing the food.
Okay, so if I know our time's about up. So if you have things like this, it's listed in the book, so I'm going to go fast. And you can help me if you'd like, honey. Constant fatigue, inability to get enough sleep, even when you go to bed early. Do you have to consume sugary snacks, soft drinks, or even energy drinks to get through a regular day? Surges of depression or anxiety, or the need to stop and breathe through stressful or not so stressful situations. Constant dehydration, hair loss, insomnia, rapid heartbeat, the sensation that your heart is racing over waves of panic, pre-diabetic symptoms, weight gain or loss that seems unexplainable or stubborn, fat, hormonal imbalances that don't make medical sense or seem unconnected to a source. This could manifest in irregular menstruation, miscarriage, and blood clots in women or in men, low testosterone. Numbness or tingling in legs, feet, and hands. Stomach, abdominal, or intestinal cramping or pain, chronic diarrhea or chronic constipation, or an alteration between the two. Fatty liver or liver dysfunction. Abdominal cramping or pain or feeling that the stomach is becoming more sensitive to foods with age, the development of food allergies, kidney dysfunction, heartburn or acid reflux condition. Sorry, I read this in my makeup room to some girls, and I was like, that's you, that's me, that's you. And I'm thinking to everybody in my life,
this used to
going
be me.
through all the, and some of it still is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, depression, anxiety, attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, frequent headaches, diagnosis of autoimmune conditions such as lupus, chronic fatigue syndrome, Crohn's disease, or adrenal fatigue, adult acne, eczema, or psoriasis, inflammatory conditions such as tendinitis, arthritis, or symptoms that are labeled inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, or other inflammations in the intestines, and we have just begun.
Wow.
If any of that is you,
That's
you
huge.
have a leaky gut.
And it's on, what page is that on? So anybody ordering the book,
It's on page,
you can
well,
read. There's a lot more
yeah,
to
there's
that.
so much more in
But-
this whole, 149.
But here's the thing. What Joe has found out, there's help for you.
yes, there's hope.
And there is,
That's the whole point.
this book, you need to read it. Because I'll tell you what, it'll cost you more than $35 just to go and have an examination
Sure.
and try to figure out what's wrong with you.
Yes.
But maybe you could find out. I literally, if I do go to a doctor and they say you have this or this or this or I look up what do I eat to affect that and that and that.
Right.
You're a
And I'll tell you
researcher.
what, my life has been so different. But Allie, what did you discover? You're the co-author of this book. As you researched this book, what maybe shocked you that's in our food?
What really shocked me more than anything else was realizing that our foods are actually filled with stimulants. And our flavor enhancers, we tend to dismiss the concerns with our food as being, oh, this probably has too much caffeine, this probably has too much sugar. But what we don't realize is that these flavor enhancers, artificial sweeteners, even food dyes are stimulants. And there's a term that is coined called excitotoxins, and what this term literally means is exciting to the point of death. So these foods create a rapid fire of signals within our minds that basically go off within our pleasure sensors of our minds, making us feel like we are having a heightened experience with this food. And what it does is it does two things. It allows our body to be tricked into accepting substandard ingredients